Dun 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 dun. I'm no John Williams, but I know how to punch a clock. Dun 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 dun. All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to Sunkworks, episode 24. How hard can it be? Part 7. Woo! Woo! What just happened? Everything shifted around on me. I'm not sure what just happened. Hold on a minute. It's as if the display link driver crashed. And I'm not sure if we're still live at all. Can you see my screen? I don't think so. Hold on a minute. Is that live again yet? No? No, it's not live. What's going on? Why is the screen disconnected all of a sudden? Can we switch to the other screen? Is that going to work? Oh, wait a minute. Are we live on this screen either? I don't think so. No. No, we can see a shadow of it, but nothing is moving. Hold on a minute. We might need to stop and start again. Be right back. Resume interrupted stream. Oh god. Did that work? I don't know. I can see my mouse pointer again. And if I switch to the other screen, we appear to be live again. Okay, cool. We can fail and recover. Just proved something important. That's good. Welcome everyone to Sunkworks episode 24, where we break things and then we fix them. I'm your host, Kingdon. I am still looking for work, but I'm having a great day because I just got my new health insurance card. So I'm actually having a much better day than yesterday. So thank you for asking about it. That is neither here nor there. So, well, we said today we're going to look at the open component. No, not open component. What does OCM stand for? We have to look this up. Get this thing out of my screen. I'm sorry. I want this off my screen. Okay. No, it's not the open component model. OCM today is going to stand for open. Where the hell did it go? That's not what it stands for. I'm sorry. I cannot speak coherently when I do not have a script. But I can riff. I can definitely riff. I think I'm on the wrong website. Where is the important website for today? Oh man, I'm sorry. None of these. What happened? Sorry, I have too many tabs open. You can't see them all because most of them are on the other screen. That's by design. But I'm not supposed to be flustered like this. This is not ideal for my show. Sorry. It's going to make the content stringy and tough. It's not going to be good to digest. It's going to be difficult. And I'm afraid that's kind of a constant theme on this show. But that's okay. We can live with it. We can work around it. I am still looking for the tabs though, and I'm gonna have to just type in a URL. I guess it's open component. No, it's not open component anything. Cluster management. That's what we're looking for. Open cluster management. Yes, that's what we would have seen in the show notes. Have we read the show notes? I see you're all busily going down and looking at the show notes now to see if that is really what we said in the show notes. I assure you it is. I'm going to pull up the show notes myself now, and I'll read them for you. so you don't have to break the stream. Okay. As a side benefit, we get to see... Oops! We get to see that we're actually online. That's good. And the stream is not too far behind us. And it says we have one watching now. Okay. So, in the previous episode, we did see how a cluster is built on top of another cluster with vcluster, and so on. We actually built a cluster on a cluster on a cluster, and we had some different semantics about the clusters inside the clusters versus the clusters outside. And then we kind of reified them so that they were all more or less the same. By the same, I mean we upgraded everything to the latest version. So that's a common problem. We want to make sure everything is on the latest version. And another common problem is, how do my users get their clusters? Which may not sound like such a common problem if you're not from around here, but I'll assure you confidently it is, again, a common problem, because whether you know it or not, your software is probably running on an instance of a compute node somewhere, whether it's Kubernetes or another orchestrator. It may be that there's a human orchestrator involved, or there's an Ansible operator, or a Terraform, or any of these that sits between you and your website. We're focused on a website here because that's what we target on this How Hard Can It Be series. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not doing rocket surgery here. We're just building websites and different versions of what a website might be. Like an event-driven operator is fundamentally a website where the content is the CRD, let's say. So we have a status, and we get the benefit of a serverless framework because the CRD is hosted outside of us, so it can be accessed without going through us. That's actually a stretch there. I said something that I'm not sure I can back up with substance, but that is, in a word, how Kubernetes works. We have CRDs, and the CRDs reflect their status out. So there need be no other API consulted about the current status. Kubernetes will eventually be consistent with the current status. We can hope. But that's the job of the operator. So if the operator is functioning correctly, and if the operator is monitored for correct function, then we can typically always know, hey, I just realized something. I'm sorry, everyone. Hold on a minute. I think I turned this off. We're going to fix it. Where did it go? There's filters. That's what I want. Filters. Oh, man. Oh, I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all about this. Wait a minute. Which lighting? Which lighting is the bad lighting? That one seems to be a bit better. Oh, it's because I'm wearing a green shirt. There's no way for it to know. I don't know if I can go on like this. All right. I am going to turn it back off because it was much better without that. Sorry. Okay, that's distracting. Have to remember not to wear my green shirt on stream day. Okay. So I was introduced to this project. This is a Linux Foundation project, by the way. It's in the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and it's not some fly-by-night. Can we say that? Is it in the sandbox or what? Let's see. Yeah, it's a sandbox project. So it could be a fly-by-night, but it seems to have some backers, so that's good. And there's a link to contribute. But of course, we want to become users first. So as good users, we're going to read the docs. And the docs begin with an overview of concepts. So we can see right away, this is a framework for platform operators to expose functionality to users. without making them fully responsible for everything. So if I understand correctly from the Getting Started guide and from the example that I saw, I'm not sure where that example was, but um, let's look at the Getting Started guide here. The quick start is always a good place to start. So we've got cluster ADM. I'm not sure if you've used cluster ADM before, or if I've used cluster ADM before. Do I have that installed already? Let's find out. Oh boy. No, we do not. We have cluster CTL. Cluster ADM is a new abstraction for us. This is great. I'm really happy about this. Okay. So I think that cluster ADM sits atop cluster CTL. I think that they're used together. You might not need cluster CTL once you have cluster ADM. But my goal is, what we can do is through the use of these, like for example, there's a VS Code extension, and there's even a developer guide for the VS Code extension. This is great. I'm going to check this out for sure. So the VS Code extension, the way this works, create a bootstrap project. Let's see. Is this a developer guide for developing the VS Code extension or for being a developer and using the VS Code extension as a developer? Looks like subscription is a thing. OCM resources. So one of the questions I had to answer that I was a bit uncomfortable with, I am interviewing, by the way. We've said that I'm on the hunt for a new job. We've said that before, and I'm going to repeat it today. I am interviewing, and one of the interesting questions that I was posed in my interview was how many times have you onboarded someone? And that was sort of like the end. It trails off like what onboarded to what specifically, but the context was we're talking about Kubernetes and pipelines or whatever it is we use for consistency. There has to be some kind of consistent policy in place about how releases are managed and how they're promoted, and that's what platform team does. So this looks really neat because it looks like it's actually abstracting over a couple of different things. Not only clusters, but how does the workload get there? And if we can do all that at once, that's great. That means that we don't have to sell them everything, right? We can just install stuff on the cluster and expose it later. But we've already got the abstraction ready for everything. Subscription placement channel, managed cluster set binding. I'm trying to be super enthusiastic about this because I don't know what it does yet, but I have a feeling my future career prospects are going to depend on it. So trying to be super optimistic about this and just keep the ball moving forward here. So this looks cool. I don't know if we're going to use this today. But I'm glad we took a look at it. I think we might use it today, but not on the stream. I think that's enough. So I'm going to share a couple of other cool things here. So one thing that we did, I have to check in on this here. Sorry. If you're familiar with FFS, if you're not familiar with FFS, this is an abbreviation. It's for your file system. So we went and downloaded a bunch of videos because we're a little bit archive paranoid. We'd like to have a copy of all of our work, and it's hard to say where the line between our work and our colleagues' work ends, especially when we produce conferences as a byproduct of our efforts. All right, an entire conference. I'm not going to take credit for every one of these talks, but I'm sure I'm in here somewhere. And I think it's good to have an archive copy, even if we're not republishing it. But I'm going to show you how we did this, because it's really neat. So here's the program. It's called MeTube. I have not deployed this on Kubernetes yet, because I did not need to. We may still do that. But what I want to check here, so this is a front end for YouTube DL, and all of these files are probably duplicates. I just want to see. If we can move any more of them off of the root disk, because there's not a lot of space on the root disk, whereas there is actually a lot of space on FFS. This is 14 terabytes, and it's mostly, not mostly full yet. It's 60% full, so there's lots of room left. Alright, so we're going to try to copy all of these videos, and if they're already there, we're going to assume that the copy we have is correct, and we can delete the extra copy. And that's where we left off. Okay. Great, we've got lots of space on our root disk again. The critical number is 85%. If our Kubernetes node goes over 85% disk usage, it's going to start evicting pods, whether or not they have an impact on the disk usage. That it really is resource aware, but only to an extent. So that may actually not be true. I have a feeling that the most resource intensive pods will be evicted first. Whether that's a good thing or not is also up for debate. But so, alright, so we downloaded a bunch of playlists. That's what this does. And it was installed by docker run command, like this. So it stands to reason that we have somewhere a container that's still running MeTube here. Quizzical Calam. And that's going to cause this website to go down. And no one will notice because, number one, it wasn't hosting any content, and number two, it was never published on the internet. So we know that here in the Sunkworks series, our goal is to publish something on the internet. We'd like to do this at least once before episode 10. I feel like I'm in a David Lynch series at this point, because we've been talking about it for a while. We've been building it up, and we've been going into subplots and side plots, and actually I'm having a lot of fun with this. I hope that you are too. But we will eventually solve the murder. We will eventually find out whose website is going to go online and how. And we might even get to see it connect to a database. I don't know. I think we're going to solve that serverless database connectivity, the connection pooling issue. I think we've seen it solved before, but I'm not sure I understood the solution. So I don't know if I can solve it without help. We might actually need your help. But I see my color is not so good right now, and I think that might mean I need to eat something. So I'm pretty sure it's the lighting, actually, but it might actually be my color. Can't really tell. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to go eat something. And if the stream is still alive when I come back, we will try to start it up again. But I'm not promising anything. I think once I stop streaming for a few minutes, it's likely to close down. So we might have to start up another episode if we're going to do that. But if you're watching hopefully you're still watching when we come back. We do have another segment of the show to test. I really would like the green screen to work for this, though. Maybe I should change my shirt. I should definitely iron this thing. It looks like all the creases are definitely contributing. If I had a good front light, it wouldn't be such a big issue. But I think all the noise you can fix through physiological means, the better the end result of the stream will be. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're actually going to just do that. I feel better. I feel better already. Okay, so we're going to close some tabs. We are going to review what we've been doing. Serverless Python. I think this is going to be good. We did say we were going to actually install something, didn't we? Yeah, not MeTube. Hold on. I have too many tabs open with the streaming. That's the problem. We're not going to get anywhere if I don't close some tabs. I'm going to do it on the other windows so we don't have to talk about it. I need to give you something entertaining to watch. Let's see. What will that be? I know. Gotta leave in about half an hour, and I have to have all these tabs closed by then, so I can host a meeting. Yeah, actually we should definitely look at the calendar together. Got all my open source fun on here. This is the Tuesday Studios calendar. You can see we're subscribed to Flux Bug Scrub, as you all should do. In a previous episode, we skipped over this part, but I do want to show you now. This is how it works. You get this URL. We all saw how to get the URL right. CNCF flux dev lists. So you want to find the CNCF flux dev list on the CNCF lists server. It's almost like listserv, but it is not any such thing, I assure you. And here we have the schedule, which will be in some time zone. I'm not sure that this will detect your local time zone or not, but you can set the time zone here. All right, so we're going to try to replicate this workflow on the Flux website, where you can see this schedule published for everyone. You don't need to actually subscribe this way, but it's not in your local time zone on the Flux website, and we would like it to be in your local time zone if we can do that. I think it's not going to be that difficult, but I've been saying that for a while, and we put in new requirement in our way, so it might actually be longer than I thought. A new requirement is we have to make money. This is a new requirement of the Flux team. We never had to think about this before. Okay, so you get your iCal URL, and you will not already have this settings page, so you will probably go here to add other calendar from URL, and then you paste it in here. And if you really want to make the calendar publicly accessible, I don't know what that does, but you click Add Calendar here, and here it's going to tell me I already have this calendar in my calendar list. But you're going to get a new calendar listed here, and it's just going to have the URL. You click on it, you can give it a name. So if you want, mine is named Flux Bug Scrub, but it's actually better described as Dev Meetings, because it is not only the Flux Bug Scrub, it is also the CNCF Flux Project Meeting. Which is, of course, the main event. Flux at OSS. What month is this we're looking at? Yeah, so here's January, and as you see, well, when does the time zone adjust? That's what I wanted to show. I wanted to show you and reassure everyone that if you actually follow these steps, then you will not be left out in the cold when the time zone adjusts. Because I've seen a lot of people drop off of the dev meetings or accidentally miss the dev meetings because the time zone change wasn't communicated to them effectively, or because not everyone agreed on how the time zone should change. So I feel like it's really important for everyone to follow the same steps, because if we have these conflicts, it's going to become the focus of the meeting, and we'll have to resolve it. And part of resolving it means that some people get left out in the cold, which I don't want to happen at all. So, in brief, we are still closing tabs. But that was an important tab, and I didn't want to close it without showing you. Now back to your regularly scheduled. Oh, I know what we'll do. Actually, I wanted to test a new segment of the stream. And we don't have to have the green screen for this. Actually, what just happened? Oh. I think my timular is telling me I've been working too long, but it doesn't know I've already taken a break, so. No, I do not want lo-fi hip-hop. I want loft.sh, friend. Can you help me find it? Here we go. Loft Labs. That is the channel that I wish to review. I believe I've seen a couple of these videos, and I think that they're very good. And this one is very similar to what we did, only in a different thread. But I appreciate this man's production values. I'm not sure how the production is done, who I should credit, but I'm going to give this man the credit because his face is on the front. So I assume that he has
I'm Mike Peterson with Loft Labs.
Mike Peterson here. I assume that Mike Peterson has everything to do with the quality. And I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to let Mike talk while I close the tabs. This is called a forcing function. We've talked about before that I cannot work and talk at the same time, and that it presents an obstacle for pair programming or pair anything. But right, one of the obstacles is someone has to be talking for there to be progress. I don't know. So I'm going to let you watch. I'm going to watch Mike, and I'm going to react, but I'm not going to react in line because I don't want to talk over Mike. I think that's disrespectful. No offense to any of the YouTube reaction videos. I may at some point pause the video, though, if I decide that there's something important that I want to comment on. But mostly, I'm going to be over here closing tabs and trying to focus on closing tabs so that I don't have so many tabs open so that I can conduct a meeting without downloading more RAM. All right, so that's the last you're going to hear from me for this episode. But here, well, maybe not the last. After the videos are over, we're probably going to come back and recap what we learned. But maybe not. Okay, see you, friends. It's going to be a real shame if I can't get the sound to come out of the screen. Hold on a second here. Full screen audio. Display capture. Application capture. That's what we'll do. Window capture. vCluster tips. Is that going to get the audio? I sure hope so. Oh, we got to make it full screen again. Can we make it neatly full screen for the whole screen? Oh no. Oh no. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I'm doing my best here. This is really not my day job. Not my forte. It's like it wants to be full screen, but not full screen. Why did it do that? Oh, that's much better. Okay. Figured it out. Now can I go to real full screen? Yes, perfect. Now can you hear it? If we play.
In this video?
Yes. All right. Goodbye, friends.
I'm Mike Peterson with Loft Labs. In this video, I'm going to go over 2 different ways to get a kube config from your virtual cluster. Maybe you just created your first vCluster, or you've been using vCluster for a while now, but you're ready to move on to the next step of automating the distribution of kube configs to your developers. Let's dive into the demo and see how this works. So we start out by creating a namespace. We're creating this namespace so we can create an ingress resource. So we're kubectl create namespace demo vCluster. Then we kubectl create demo ingress, and then here's what the ingress looks like. So the ingress has a couple of configuration options that you're going to take a look at. So first thing being SSL pass-through. So when you set up SSL pass-through, that means you need to have a configuration option within Nginx that enables this flag, and that's going to be under the spec container arguments. So you may need to update your ingress controller if you're not doing that already. And you can see that we're using ingress class name Nginx. So that's what this is going to actually show off, is everything is going to be Nginx for this. So we're going to set the host for demo vcluster.local. And then after that, what we're going to go ahead and do is we will create the actual vCluster. So here we're going to hop over to the vCluster CLI. vCluster create demo vCluster in the namespace demo vCluster. We're going to say connect equals false because we don't want to connect to it and do port forwarding. And then we're going to actually use a values file to configure it. Now within the values file, we have configured TLS sand. So that's actually the host name that we're going to be using. We did the configuration server to set it as demo.vcluster.local as well. And then we also set the kube context so that we can actually get that information from the secret, which will be the second way that we actually get the kube config. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to get our first kube config, and we're going to use a vCluster CLI to do that. So vCluster connect demo vCluster update current equals false. So we're not going to update our current context. We're telling it what server to connect to. We're waiting for it to come up. And what that does is it'll download the kube config to our current directory. And then what we'll do is we'll kubectl with the kube config specified as the one we just downloaded and get namespaces. These are the namespaces that are within the virtual cluster. And then we'll run kubectl get namespaces just to show what's running on the base cluster. And then here's kubectx to show my current context, which is default. All right, so this is the second way to get the kube config. What we're going to do is we're going to get it from the secret that's actually on the host cluster itself. So kubectl get secret vc-demo-vcluster in the namespace demo vcluster. We're going to look within that template and we're going to pull the information from .data.config. We're going to pipe that to base 64, and then we're going to output that data into our vc kubeconfig.yaml. And then with that, we're going to go ahead and run kubectl with that kube configuration and get namespaces. And here's the output showing that we're within the virtual cluster. It matches what we did earlier when we used the vcluster command. What you should be able to do with this is programmatically create a virtual cluster and then be able to pull the kube config and supply that to your developer. Thank you so much for watching this video. Consider liking and subscribing if you want to see more content like this. This content was actually created based on a survey that we did recently about vCluster. If you're interested in filling out that survey, we're running it until the end of January. It's in the description below. Also, documentation on how to configure this and how to get access to this is in the description below too. So thank you so much, and we should have more videos talking about different use cases and how to get started after day 1 of using vCluster.
Well, like I said, I think the production values on these videos are very good, and I really appreciate them, and I'm glad that, here we go. I'm glad that this appears to be a current series that is going to be produced on an ongoing basis. I see this video came out 2 days ago. We're going to watch this one as well.
I'm Mike Peterson with Loft Labs. If you're using Amazon EKS, then stay tuned. I'll cover how to configure an Nginx ingress controller for a virtual cluster using the built-in load balancer service. Let's get started. To start things out, we created a brand new EKS cluster, and we can see that with EKS-CTL get cluster. It's going to show vcluster-demo-EKS. Then we're going to run kubectl get namespace, and that's going to show us the default namespaces that are created with a EKS cluster. After that, we need to install an Nginx ingress controller. We can do that with Helm. One of the only values that we have to actually set within this is controller.extraargs.enable SSL pass-through to true. What this is going to let us do is use the SSL pass-through option to pass the traffic to the API running within the virtual cluster. So we'll run kubectl get service in the Nginx ingress namespace, and we're going to grep load balancer, and then we're going to print the actual load balancer information that we're going to need for our DNS record. So here what we'll do is we'll set up our DNS record real quick. We're going to set it up for demo.vcluster-demo.com, and then what we can do is we can create a namespace for the vcluster. So we'll use kubectl create namespace demo vcluster. After that, what we can do is go ahead and create the ingress resource. So kubectl create demo vcluster ingress, and let's go ahead and take a look at what's in that file. So here what we're doing is we're doing SSL pass-through, SSL redirect, and the host name is demo.vcluster-demo.com. This is what your ingress is going to look like when you create it on your EKS cluster. And we're going to be using the load balancer that is built in that we created with the Nginx ingress controller. So now we're going ahead and create the virtual cluster. So vcluster create demo vcluster in the namespace demo vcluster. We're not going to connect to it, and we're going to use this values file to create it. So we're going to tell it that we're going to use demo.vcluster-demo.com, and we're telling it what the config server is going to be. If we do a vcluster list, we can see that we're actually running a vcluster now. It's running in EKS, so you can see that information here. And we're going to go ahead and connect to it without updating our current kube config, and we're going to tell it which server to connect to. What this is going to do is go ahead and connect. It's going to go ahead and give us a kube config that we can use to interact with that cluster. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get namespaces with that kube config. But one of the gotchas is you got to wait for your DNS resolution to get configured. Otherwise, you're going to see an error like that. So now that we've waited a little bit, the DNS is configured. What we'll do is we'll get the namespaces again with that same kube config. And just to show you that we're using the right server, here it is. And then what we can do is we can get namespaces on the base cluster for EKS and show that there's two different clusters going on. There's a virtual cluster and an EKS cluster. That's pretty much it. That's a quick demo. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for checking out this video. If you're running an ingress controller that's not Nginx, please comment below and let us know. That way we can make different kinds of guides based on other kinds of ingress controllers. Right now we've got a lot of stuff around Nginx. Seems like Nginx is used pretty heavily, so let us know. Thank you.
I do think there is something I can do about the green screen, but I apologize if the audio had any issues. I'm not sure I'm handling the microphone appropriately. I remember someone, a good friend of mine, I can't remember who, said, I wish they had classes on microphone handling. I think it was Brian, actually. In high school, that should be required class for everyone. How do you handle a microphone? When someone hands it to you, what are the correct things and incorrect things to do with a microphone? How do you make that horrible sound? Boo! Don't make the horrible sound. No. Like I said, I think these videos are very good, and I hope that they go on. I'm not sure what we're going to see next. If it's going to be more ingresses or something other than ingress. I think that vCluster has some very neat features. And there are a lot of ways you could go with this. I do think one of the things, just commentary on these specific videos, one of the things that's a little bit inaccessible, or that I don't know if it makes it inaccessible or more accessible, is the obviation of the concept of my kubeconfig. If you've used Kubernetes before, you probably are aware of the kubeconfig default location in home.kubeconfig. I think that's what it's called. home.cube/config. And you can have more kube configs, and you can keep them there alongside of that one, or you can have many contexts all merged inside of the same kube config. And there was a tab here that is relevant to that. So we've probably seen before kubectx. This is one of my favorites. It's in my dot files. I have published my dot files, but I've never done a video about them. I might go and do a dot files video. That might be good. It would be really good to do a dot files video after I'm fully transitioned to ZSH, because I feel like I'm unconventional a bit about still using bash, but I do still use bash. Anyway, kubectx is great because it enables the fuzzy finder. So you don't necessarily have to type the entire cluster name, and you can enable tab completion, I think. There's probably tab completion in here. And it has completion for ZSH too. And kconf, on the other hand, kconf is useful because, like I said, that concept of my kube config, that's a little bit personal. And some people might not be ready yet to accept that they could have their kube config, right? By the time you've given them a kube config and made it theirs, they're already a bit uncomfortable with this. They didn't ask for a Kubernetes. They won't accept it if it's on cache on delivery, right? So, but kconf is useful because it helps you splice and dice. If you ever use like a tool like PDF SAM, you got a bunch of PDFs, or you got one big PDF and you need to have a bunch of PDFs instead, or vice versa. Kconf is great because it lets you add and remove contexts easily, and it just works the way you expect it to work. Like, there's not really even any instructions here. It's add rm ls. It's just, if you used Unix before, this is easy to use. And you can add a kube config to your existing kube config, and you can add it with a context name that overrides the context name. So, bearing in mind that you can have multiple environments in a single kube config, and that means that they may need to come and go, and you may need to manage that, or they'll become stale. This is another problem this is a problem that we've sort of solved, but not really solved in a hand-wavy sort of way, with the kubeconfig ca fetch package that I wrote. And this has got a whole host of things wrong with it. How come we're not, oh. I'm sorry. Here, I've been talking to the wrong set of tabs. Here we go. These are the websites I wanted you to find. And the other ones I can probably close. There's a nice article about Flagger. Here, we're going to put this in there too. I think people skip over Flagger sometimes when they really shouldn't. Flagger. Whoa. Where is the music coming from? I did not ask for that, but I will accept it. Pardon me. Okay. Yeah, I think that people skip over Flagger when they really shouldn't, because Flagger is like the safety net. If you have a high value deployment, and by that I mean almost any deployment. If you've deployed it, it's obviously high value, so you should use this everywhere. But in particular, the high value deployments, you would like for there to be a safety net. You'd like for there to be some metrics collected that tell you that the application is functioning appropriately just by looking at them. You can see You know, they jitter a little bit, they go up and down, but they don't go outside of this range. That's easy. You know, you can set that up and get an alert when something goes wrong. But then you're getting alerts. You don't really want alerts, do you? So, and 9 times out of 10, when something's going wrong, it's because I did it, right? It's my fault. I made a change. That change caused the issue. So if we can take that confluence of issues and say, if you make a change and it causes an issue, we're going to stop you. That's what Flagger's doing, and it creates a safety net for your developers. When you first experience the rollback in production, when you say, I didn't realize that was a mistake, and then it makes it all the way to production, and then it gets rolled back because the metrics were good. That's such a great feeling. You realize from that moment that you have true freedom, that you can really build anything, right? And it's not that we want to make mistakes, but it is that we want to make mistakes. Mistakes are an inevitable part of working on something new, anything creative. If you refuse to acknowledge that you must make some mistakes in order to accomplish a goal, then you are fraught. Your development process is fraught. And all high performers will acknowledge that they value sometimes having the freedom to make mistakes. It's not that you need this freedom in every context, but you do need a context where you can spend a good amount of time making mistakes so that you can get better. Real talk. Real talk. So that context is grown with Flagger. If you can use Flagger everywhere, then that context becomes so large because the impact is minimized. The impact of a failure, or don't call it failure, don't call it mistake, right? But that's what we're talking about, an error. The impact of an error can be reduced through a simple procedural means. So why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you want to see that reduced? I'm sure it's because of some friction. Maybe you tried before and it was very difficult and something went wrong and it didn't work out to your expectations. I apologize if that's been your experience. I have not had that experience myself. I would like to grow my experience to the point where I can say I've had that experience, but it looks like this is a nice article. I haven't really read this article either. I'm not using Istio, and we actually wrote in the, I said I was going to read the show notes. I didn't quite get there, but there was something about we're not going to go full service mesh. So if you're coming here for Istio, sorry, we're not going to do Istio today, but you should have read the show notes. I do have to go. I have to close the tabs, and I'm not doing it on the stream. I'm pontificating, and I'm talking to the world instead. So I'm going to go, but before I do that, I'm just gonna take a minute to take a deep breath and reflect on how everything is still going to be okay. I know that we've had some turmoil the last couple of episodes, and maybe we're not in the best place strategically or tactically, or but I do think we'll be okay. I think we're all going to be okay, and I think that we can all be okay. So those things are all not mutually exclusive. Let's go and be fantastic together. We can do it. Okay. We're all going to make it. We're going to get there together. That's my prediction. Thanks for watching, and signing off.